You know, it never sat well with me how Jon Snow never fought the Night King at the end of Game of Thrones. So you know what? Let's change that. So to make this animation, I'm going to need to do some planning so I actually can get it done. The first two things I need to do are character designs and a storyboard. That way I can kind of find the style and the aesthetic that I want. Also plan the beginning, middle, and end of my animation. Now if you've watched one of my previous videos, you'll know that I already built a Jon Snow character rig. I went through a few iterations of that design and I actually am really happy with how it turned out. So I'm going to lean in to that cartoony style. I think it's going to look really cool with pretty stylized characters, but also with some heavy hardcore action. So originally, for the Night King, this was the design. Sharp features, pretty tall, but I kind of wasn't happy with it. So instead, what we're going to do, we'll match our original Jon Snow design, and we'll try and create something a little more closer to this guy. So I kept the characters with the big head and the bigger eyes to kind of really help show their expressions. I played around with a few design styles, but I wanted to keep the details very simple on these characters as well. Even though I'm not going to be hand drawing them, I'm going to create character rigs. Less details are to keep track of, the easier it's going to be to animate. Those character designs done, I'll put them off to the side and I can rig them later. I already have Jon Snow rigged, so I just need to create the Night King. But what I really need to think about now is kind of the flow. How do I want the beginning, the middle, and the end of this fight to go? So I needed to get my ideas down on paper. So I did really quick thumbnails, kind of mapping out the flow of the fight, what I wanted to happen at the beginning, what I wanted to happen in the middle, and what I wanted to happen at the end. Right, at this stage, I was being really rough, really loose. These drawings were just for me, so they don't have to look good at all. So taking the thumbnails that I was happy with, I blew them up and took them into Procreate. And using Procreate's animation feature, I started to block in a rough animatic. Now here, even though the character designs are really rough, I was focusing more on creating strong poses and great composition. I wanted the poses to be dynamic and full of energy to see how far I can push these cutout character rigs. You'll also see that I occasionally bring in some reference to help make my poses stronger and more believable. I'm really not focused too much on the in-betweens, but I really want to get some nice keyframe poses. The actions need to be reading clearly at this stage, and then I can clean them up even more when I start animating. So what was key during the boarding process is using a lot of reference. I watched a lot of live action sword fight scenes to get some cool camera moves and, poses and combos. I looked at a lot of stick figure animation, which has surprisingly cool choreography as well. And of course some other anime references. And what I really like doing is kind of merging pieces from each of those and putting them into one scene. So I would take a pose or a combo that I liked from one shot and maybe combine it with something else that I saw and put it together in one scene. This helped keep things fresh and just made sure that I wasn't copying pose for pose and just using it as a reference. So I really wanted the whole time for the Night King to feel very overpowered. I wanted it to feel like Jon Snow is throwing everything he has at him, but the Night King is easily overpowering Jon Snow until the end, where he kind of gets a little overconfident and gets surprised and ultimately defeated. After everything was drawn in Procreate, I brought it into a software called Capcut to kind of edit it and chop it together, to kind of check out the timing and how the scenes actually hooked up with one another. I added a little bit of sound just to kind of get a mood and a feel of how things would look, and yeah, here you go. Here is the finished animatic. So it's not completely polished, but it's good enough for me to get an idea of how I want the animation to go. I left it open for changes because I still want it to be fluid and free if I feel like I need to add something in later. So that is that process. This took me around, I want to say 3 weeks to do. Yeah, next steps, we need to rig these characters and create some backgrounds for the animation. I want to have this all finished before I actually start because, believe it or not, the animation is the least of my worries. I don't have as much experience creating rigs or backgrounds, so it's going to take me more time to get that stuff to a place I'm happy with. So thanks for sticking with me through this process, and tune into the next video where we're going to create the backgrounds and the rigs. Also guys, huge shout out and thank you to our members on this channel. You guys are making it so easy to create content like this. So thanks a lot for that.